Hi friends, today we are going to discuss about disorders of thought, a very important component under mental status examination. I'm Dr. Suresh Padadmat, Professor of Psychiatry, Head of Telemedicine Center, Head of Forensic Psychiatry Unit at NIMANS, Bangalore. Today we are going to discuss about thought. Thought, an idea or an opinion produced by thinking. It is also called as process of thinking or an idea occurring suddenly in the mind. So these are the various definitions given by various people regarding the thought. But thought is a very higher mental function which are commonly seen in human being. Let's understand the thought. Thought is an important component of mental status examination, and the assessment of thought is through speech. And in mental status examination, we have different 7 components. The thought is one of the important component under that. The thought is assessed through a speech, and hence the comprehension and expression of speech makes a very important what we call it as a tool for assessing the thought. Considering the human expresses their thought by speech, that means whenever the question is asked, they should be able to comprehend, they're able to communicate and repeat. So these essential component of speech should be spared, then only we can do the thought. And if you look at the mental status examination, the assessment of the speech comes first and then the thought comes. If the assessment of the speech is wrong, or if there is a problem in speech, or else speech disorder is there like aphasia, then assessment of thought becomes very difficult. Like if there is a patient is having a global aphasia or else Wernicke's aphasia, then assessment of thought is completely difficult and it is impossible. Only the thought process should be assessed when there is a speech component is well preserved. Assessment of the thought should be done in the patient's mother tongue. That is basically, don't assess the patient in a foreign language. If the patient speaks Hindi, don't do the assessment in English. And if the patient does not know English, obviously he will make mistakes and your interpretation will be completely wrong. Hence, as far as possible, a message should be done in the local language of the patient. And it can be done both on inpatient or in outpatient basis. But however, in inpatient, you may do the assessment almost every day, alternative day, or else weekly once or twice. But on OP basis, whenever the patient comes for follow-up once in a month, or twice a month, or maybe 2 months once, then the assessment of thought is done. To do the assessment of thought, you have to have a good speech sample. The speech sample should be taken by asking open-ended questions. What are open-ended questions? Basically, these are the questions which invites the persons to think and answer in a undirected fashion. It should not be closed-ended questions. For example, you should not ask a question, did you have breakfast or not? The response is yes or no. You should ask the same question, tell me about your today's breakfast. So that question invites him, when did he had, what did he had, with whom he had, where did he had, all those information comes by the patient. So the open-ended question should be similar to tell me about your festival, like tell me about your festival which you recently celebrated, Deepavali, or else Christmas, or maybe Ramzan. Ask about the recent festival which he had celebrated. Tell me about your place. If he is from well-known place like Mysore or Delhi, ask him to explain about his place, about his city. Ask him to talk about his family members. Ask him to tell me about your friends, about your work, college, school. So these are the open-ended questions which commonly asked for the patient. And also you can ask to make him actively think, tell me about the climate change. What is your opinion about climate? What is your opinion about the current politics? Tell me what is the role of media nowadays. So those are the questions you can ask. Tell me about the current education system. So these are the highly open-ended questions. However, there are some structured way of asking open-ended question also. If the patient is not able to answer these above open-ended questions, you may ask him to somehow a semi-structured, or what we call it as a not so either completely open-ended, not so closed questions. You can ask him, how do you prepare coffee? How do you prepare tea? So these are the questions which again gives him the general direction of thinking will be within how to make a coffee or a tea. So that means he has been given some amount of restriction to think, and to again there also he has to provide certain information by thinking how to make a tea. So these are the important step of getting a speech sample has to be done. Once you get a good amount of speech sample, then only you can go ahead do the interpretation of the thought. How it is done? See, first and the foremost is speech sample has to be taken. And before you approach the patient, first and the foremost, please collect information from all possible sources. Talk to the patient or the patient's family members, relatives. Look into the patient records. Talk to the nurse. Talk to his colleagues if you are able to talk to him. Observe the patient. Do word observation report. Do you have? And also by interviewing the patient, doing cognitive tests. And this duration of thought, it should be that it's a part of MSc, hence it is for 1 month. Who should do it? The psychiatrist, psychiatry residents or junior residents, primary care doctors, psychologist, social worker, and nurses. These are the people who have been trained in doing MSc should be doing the assessment of thought. And again, I would like to make an important point here. The point is, the assessment of thought should not be independent. And assessment of MLC is not independent. The assessment of mental status examination is a part of complete history taking. Without knowing the patient history, without knowing his clinical status, without doing that, just doing assessment of thought or MSc does not become valid. Although you would have done a good job, but it will not give you a comprehensive, valid diagnosis. Hence, it should be a part of a comprehensive assessment than an independent mental status examination or an independent thought examination. So, when you are doing the assessment of thought, it is assessed in the 4 important factors: form, stream, possession, and content. So, these are the 4 important components of thought assessment. Let's go into the each factors. First, we will talk about the form of thought. Basically, how the thought organized, what is the structure of thought, and how the thought expression is done. That is what is called as form. If you are going to say formal thought disorder, means disorder of organizing thoughts, conceptualizing thoughts, and loss of abstract thinking. So this is called as formal thought disorder. Further, formal thought disorder can be noted if you are able to see if there is impairment in the structure of thinking process, organization of thinking, difficulty in concept formation, loss of goal directedness. You ask a question, patient is unable to answer the question. That means he starts with somewhere and he goes into a different thought process. If you are asking him to talk about his city, but he is talking something else, that means the goal direction is not there. Presence of neologism. Neologism is nothing but coining new words which is nowhere in the world. So that new word will be a special meaning to the patient, which nobody will be able to understand that. Whether his speech is incoherent, poverty of speech and poverty of content of speech, loss of abstract thinking and concrete thinking. So these are the formal thought disorder format or the concepts which been noted. Let's move further about the form. The formal thought disorder, what I spoke about till now, can be classified into 2 important things. One is negative formal thought disorder and positive formal thought disorder. Negative formal thought disorder is basically loss of concept formation. That means the patient who had learned the concept formation, thinking process is completely lost. That is negative formal thought disorder. As in positive formal thought disorder, patient makes false concepts. He blends 2 or 3 thoughts and produces a single thought. That means he produces incongruous elements. Here he is making attempts, but they are completely wrong. As a negative formal thought disorder, he lost his complete ability of thinking. So how we understand negative formal thought disorder? Negative formal thought disorder can be understood by poverty of speech and poverty of content of speech. Positive formal thought disorder has been classified by various people like Cameron, Goldstein, Lawler, and Snyder. Let's now move into negative formal thought disorder. Negative formal thought disorder, first and the foremost, is poverty of speech. That is basically elogia. The patient, however much you talk, the patient is not at all speaking, and he gives maximum is monosyllabus. Here, the quantity of speech is completely reduced. The thought process is not there. The patient does not make any attempt to answer your question or else makes any attempts to talk to people. That is called as poverty of speech. The next one is poverty of content of speech. That is, the quality of speech is very poor. You ask a patient, tell me about your family. He will start as what is there in the family. Family is a family. Family is everybody's family. Family is known to have a family. So these kinds of irrelevant answer he will go on talking for nearly 10 to 15 minutes, but he would have not conveyed anything. That means he is speaking, but there is no concept and there is no what we call it as content in the speech. His speech is voluminous, but the content delivery is very poor. So both are seen in negative schizophrenia or what we call it as negative symptom schizophrenia. Poverty of speech, poverty of content of speech. One has quantity is less, the other is quality of the speech is very poor. Moving to the positive formal thought disorder, here the patient makes false concepts or blending of two or more thoughts and coming up with a new incongruous element thoughts. Let's understand. First one is Bloyler's. The Bloyler, basically Eugene Bloyler, had come up with a diagnosis or what we call it as definition of schizophrenia, where he talked about disorders of association. Disorders of association of between the thoughts. Schizophrenia is nothing but a thought disorder. Here, he has come up with the important components, three important components: misuse of symbols, condensation, and displacement. Actually, these are the components which have been noted under Freud's misinterpretation of dreams. The Bloyler came up with this and said these are part of the problem with the thinking process of the schizophrenia patient. Misuse of symbols. Here, the patient, whenever a proverb or a abstract thinking symbols are given, he misuses them and gives a different meaning. Condensation. Here, the patient brings in two or three thoughts and makes it into a one thought, which will be very difficult to comprehend. Neither the patient will be able to convey it, neither the examiner will be able to understand. Displacement. Whenever a patient is speaking, a thought is suddenly displaced with another thought, which is completely incongruent to his thought process and also the current situation. That is called as displacement. So these are the three important Bloyler has had given. Coming to the Goldstein. The Goldstein has clearly said loss of abstract thinking. It is basically concrete thinking. The examination of how to do abstract thinking, I have done a mental status examination and a cognitive function assessment video. Please go through that. But the Goldstein has given only one, loss of abstract thinking. Coming to the Cameron's. Cameron has given various formal thought disorder. Incoordination. Basically, the thought process goes in a coordinated fashion of expressing his views, where the coordination between one thought to another thought is very well. But in case of formal thought disorder, this coordination becomes incoordinated fashion. So this incoordination causes complete incoherent speech and the patient will not be able to convey anything. Fragmentation. The thought process becomes completely fragmented and he will not be able to convey his thoughts in a summary form of what we call it as conveying his views, which is not possible. Interpenetration. That is, one thought is penetrated with another thought. For example, if you have a thought that you have to go to maybe a place, for example, if you want to go to Delhi, you are thinking how to go, but at the same time, you also have a thought process running parallelly, like what you have to do now at home, and also what you are supposed to do at the hospital. So there are 3 or 4, 5 thought processes are running parallelly, and these thought process starts intermingling, and the interpretation of thought occurs when you talk to the person. You'll be telling, I'm going to Delhi, but at the same time, you'll be telling that I have to cook food, I have to do this, or else you'll say, there is a patient in the hospital. So this interpretation of many thoughts will occur and his speech becomes incomprehensible. Asynthesis, that is again the loss of coordination between two or three thoughts or mixing of two or three thoughts. Metonyms and over-inclusion, these are also a part of what the Cameroon has explained. The last part is Carl Schneider. Carl Schneider has been given various concepts. Very important of them are derailment. This is basically derailment and tangentiality are common, which where the patient, when you ask a question, you'll start speaking in one direction and slowly he will derail from that thought process. If you ask him to speak about about the sport cricket, he will say the cricket is played with 11 people and slowly he will start talking about politics. So 11 people means there are 30 parties. Parties means there are various parties are available. Those parties are do not good do for anything. And he derails completely from the cricket topic. So that is derailment or tangentiality, omission. If you are asking him to talk about certain topics, you can see there is a omission in his thought process. Fusion. What it is almost like interpretation. Here it is called as fusion. Substitution. One thought is substituted by another thought. Driveling is the other one. So these are the important components of formal thought disorders given by various people. But however, please do remember, one of the important phenomena which has been told in the older textbook, woolliness sign. This woolliness sign is seen in early signs of schizophrenia. When a person who has a family member with schizophrenia, you can find the person who is unaffected, but maybe in a prodrome, you can see there is a vagueness in his speech. When they speak, you find it very difficult to understand what they are trying to speak. And many a time they move, there will be, you can see the tangentiality. That means they will use words in a vague manner. Same word will be used with a different meaning in different statements. So these woolliness can be seen in persons with family members of schizophrenia, or else you also can see in schizotaxia, or what we call it as schizophasia, or this Paul Mill concept, where you can see the patient's family members also having some kind of woolliness in this thought process, which gives an indication of hereditary nature of schizophrenia. So the woolliness in thought process, it says that this person may develop schizophrenia in the long run. Coming to the second important point, the stream. Here, stream is nothing but how the flow and the continuity of thought process occurs. That means we have talked about the organization and structure in the form. Here we are talking about the stream, how the thought is flowing and how whether there is a continuity or not. Let's understand. The stream of thought has two important disorders, tempo and continuity. Tempo is how speed and how fast it is moving. Continuity is whether the thought process is continuous or not. In the disorders of tempo, flight of ideas, retardation of thinking, and circumstantiality, that is tempo. Coming to the continuity, perseveration, and thought blocking. Let's understand each one of them. First, we will enter into the tempo disorders. The disorders of tempo, first and the foremost, is flight of ideas, which is commonly seen in mania. Here, the patient will be jumping from one thought to another thought process. This occurs because the mania patient gets a rapid flow of thoughts. He will get the thoughts will be bombarding him in many ways. So there will be rapid flow of thoughts without any general direction. There is no connection between one thought to another thought. But however, these thoughts will have some chance factor of association. That is associations like assonance, clangs. But however, when you look into that, you can easily understand when you trace back his thought process or the speech sample. So this is called as flight of ideas, which is commonly seen in mania. For example, this is the classical example given in Fish textbook of psychopathology. Please go through that. In that, for disorders of tempo, a mania patient speaks like this. Birmingham, king standing. See the king. He is standing king. King, king, sing, sing. Sing, bird. Bird on the wing. Wing, wing, wing. Wing on the bird. Bird, bird, bird. Turd, turd, turd. So he goes on like this. If you look back, why is he speaking like this? You can see the patient was seeing the bird. From the bird, he went into the wing. From the wing, you can able to trace back, it was sing. From sing, it was king. The king basically came because he saw somebody standing. That is, king is standing because it was Birmingham. So this is the way his flow of thoughts can be easily traced and how he spoke. So that is about the flight of ideas when the person is bombarded with huge number of thoughts. And it can be easily seen or monitored or observed, appreciated in the clinical scenario when it is difficult to stop a patient from speaking. And if you count the words, it will be 150 words per minute. If it crosses that, you can clearly say the patient has pressure of speech. But however, the milder form is called as prolixity or else ordered flight of ideas. It is a hypomania kind of situation, not a full blown mania. It's a hypomania, very mild form of mania. Here also the flight of idea is also mild. That is called as prolixity. Here when you ask certain question, the patient speaks huge amount. It will be very irrelevant. But however, he will return to the point what the question is been asked. It is almost like a circumstantiality. But here in prolixity, you will love to hear him because there will be lively embellishment of his sentences and thinking process. He will cut jokes, he will make jokes. At the same time, he's animated. He will even act the what the person has said. So it's kind of a drama you are going to see. But however, it will be a tedious process. It will be time consuming, but you will enjoy it. But in circumstantiality, it is boring. You don't want to sit there for even a moment. But however, in both the cases, the patient comes back to the point of what the question has to be answered. That means they will return to the goal of whatever the goal in their hand, they will return back to that. That is basically task in the hand they will complete by answering that. The next important is retardation of thinking. This is commonly seen in depression. The thought process slow downs to that level. The patient number of ideas will be very less. Whenever you ask question, the patient has to think for a long time and he will answer in monosyllabus or a single sentences. This is manifested in the form of difficulty in speech, volume of speech, difficulty in decision making, and lack of concentration. So this is the retardation of thinking. Circumstantiality. Here, the thought process is very slow, but at the same time, it goes into unnecessary trivial details, tedious elaboration. But finally, the point is reached. Circumstantiality is very common in a patient with epilepsy or epileptic personality change. So, but the circumstantiality and the prolixity appears to be same, but in lively embellishment is seen in prolixity. The gesture, the way he speaks, the tone, tempo, reaction time is varied in prolixity. But in circumstantiality, it is a boring, tedious details with same tone, with the tempo being slow. So you can easily differentiate between prolixity and circumstantiality, and it's one of the commonest question which is asked in the exam. Coming to the stream. Stream is the flow and continuity of thought process. We talked about tempo disorders. Now we are talking about the continuity. Here you have two important disorders, perseveration and thought blocking. Perseveration is nothing but the mental operations tends to proceed beyond the point of relevance. You ask a question, he will answer it, but he continues to answer further. So you have to understand perseveration, there is a point of relevance is there. But however, in stereotyping, there is no point of relevance. He continues to do it. There are two important types of perseveration, ideational and verbal. So the differentiation between perseveration and stereotypy, perseveration, there is a point of relevance. Whereas in stereotypy, we will not be able to understand why is he doing. There is no point of relevance. Let's understand the different types. First and the foremost, I spoke about ideational. Ideational perseveration, there is a thought process or an idea which will be repeated in every question. If the person has met with an accident, maybe around 8 years back, and he is perseverating that, and he had a thought process that he was going in a scooter along with his family members, that is its wife and child, he was going at a 30-kilometer speed. From the opposite, the bus came and hit him, and he had a head injury. So this is the idea. This idea has been ingrained into his brain. Now in the perseveration, when you ask him, What work do you do? He will say, I am working in certain organization. In that organization, I do go to work daily. On one fine day, when I was going on the road along with my wife and child on a scooter, suddenly the bus came in front of me, and at that we met with an accident, had an head injury. Second, you ask him, tell me about the recent festival that you have celebrated. Yeah, we celebrated Deepavali. On the Deepavali, we usually buy a lot of things, and I used to go to market. One day when I was going outside on the scooter along with my wife and the child, and suddenly the bus came, we met with an accident. It means the same idea repeats in almost all answers. So that is called as ideational perseveration. So next one is difficulty in switching. You ask him, what is your name? He will say, my name is Raj. What is your mother's name? He will again say Raj. That means, again you ask him, where are you working? He will say Raj. There is difficulty in switching from one question to another. The same Raj will be repeated n number of times. That is difficulty in switching. Now coming to compulsive perseveration. In compulsive perseveration, if you ask him, what is your dog's name? He will say Tommy, 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 Tommy. What is your father's name? Rajkumar, 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 Rajkumar. He will be repeating. That means he is able to switch from one question to another, but the answer will be repeated many times till he get a new stimuli. So that is compulsive. There are two different types of special perseveration. They are logoclonia and palilalia. In logoclonia, the last word will be repeated in increased frequency. You ask him, tell me, which car do you have? I have a car called as Vento, 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 Vento. He will repeat the last word. So that is logoclonia. Palilalia is the last syllabus will be repeated. You ask him, which bike you are owning? He may say, I'm owning a bike called Thunderbird D. That Thunderbird D will be repeated. The last syllables will be repeated. So these are the two important special type of perseveration. Although you may not find them usually in your clinical findings in your day-to-day practice, but however, if you're going to an exam, these are the favorite questions of the examiners: logoclonia and palilalia. They will ask you what are the special types of perseveration. Coming to the last part, the thought block. This is commonly seen during exams or during the interview. You go to a place for an interview and suddenly, because of anxiety, you become blank. That is nothing but thought block. That is sudden arrest of train of thought, leaving the person blank. And new thought begins after some time when the person is calm. So thought block is very common in anxiety. But however, sometimes in schizophrenia patient, the patient feels that somebody is blocking his thoughts. So that's a different phenomena. But however, thought block is very common in extremely anxious patients. Moving to the possession. Here in possession, who is the ownership of the thought? Whether the thought belongs to him or else he feels his thought is controlled by somebody else. So if he feels that the thought is the owner, then the disorders are obsession and compulsion, impulses, imageries, and phobias. If he feels his thoughts are not his thoughts, somebody else is controlling, and somebody else is able to gain access to his thoughts through an external agency, they are all thought alienation phenomena like thought withdrawal, thought insertion, thought broadcasting. So we will deal with both of them. First, we will understand the person feels that they are these own thoughts. We will talk about obsession and compulsion. In obsession and compulsions, the patient has repeated thoughts, images, ideas, and impulses. These are all thought process. So repeated thoughts which are unwanted. He does not want them, but they are repeatedly coming to his mind. They are intrusive in nature. They are his own thoughts. He recognizes that these thoughts are my own, but he is unable to resist them. And they are from the subjective mind. That is basically the ego boundary. It is in his mind space, not from the outside the objective space. It is in the subjective ego boundary. And he clearly says they are senseless, absurd, they are anxiety provoking sometimes depressive, they are time consuming, ego-dystonic. He doesn't like them. For example, if the patient, wherever he goes, he feels that everywhere it is dirty. Whenever he touches them, he feels that his hand is contaminated. We call it as obsessive fear of contamination. Here, the patient has a thought he has been contaminated. Whenever he touches, whenever he sees something, he has to wash his hands. And he has to wash unless he feels satisfied. That is compulsion. So, repeated thoughts of contamination and compulsion of washing. He has to wash his hands. He knows these thoughts are his own. He knows these are all absurd, senseless, intrusive, but he cannot stop them. And he is unable to resist them. And he has to wash his hands. They are called as obsession and compulsion. How do you differentiate from people preoccupied with their girlfriend or they are occupied with the exams? These are all ego-dystonic. They love them. They like them. At the same time, they are not absurd. They are not senseless. Whereas in obsession and compulsion, the clear cut is they know their own thoughts and they know they are senseless, intrusive. They don't want them. They are the characteristic of obsession and compulsion. Coming to the external agency, that means he feels his thoughts are not his thoughts. Somebody else is manipulating that. They're all thought alienation phenomena, thought insertion, thought withdrawal, and thought broadcast. At the same time, made act and made phenomena can be considered here. It is made act and made affect. That means the patient says his physical activity is controlled by somebody else. Even what he smiles is controlled by somebody else. And he clearly says there is an external agency interfering in his thought process. And also, his ego boundary is broken. Ego boundary means it is subjective space. For example, whatever you think, the thought is very private for you. Unless you tell somebody, it is your private. But in schizophrenia patient, these thoughts, he feels that somebody is able to tap into his thoughts. Somebody is able to gain access to his thoughts without his wish and will. And that external agency is able to modify his thought process. So that's a very terrifying phenomena. So let's understand. This is the brain, and you are able to feel there is ego boundary. If I'm able to understand, I have an image of my dad, I'm able to think about it, and it is in my subjective space. I can see my dad's photo in front of me. It is what we call it as image, and I don't want, I can stop it. Whereas in obsession, in OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, patient gets repeated images, unwanted images. It may be sexual images. It may be images which he doesn't want, but they are coming repeatedly, but they are all in the subjective space. Whatever I can think, so though the brain is here, I'm able to think. I can project my ideas onto this wall or onto the computer. I can think. So that is a subjective space where I can project it. So that subjective space is my space. Nobody can enter into it. But however, in schizophrenia, he feels somebody is tapping into his subjective space. This is what is the external agency interfering in him. Let's further understand that. The brain, and he has a thought process or ego boundary is there. He is able to think and he is able to imagine. I can imagine somebody is, I can hear him imagine the music of A.R. Rahman. I'm able to feel those music of the wonderful movie Rosa. That auditory imageries are there. So it is in the subjective space, not in the objective space. Once it becomes objective space, it becomes hallucination. In the subjective space, I'm able to control them. I'm able to ignore them. They are all imageries. And it is within my subjective space. This is the circle, is the subjective space. But in schizophrenia, these are the, like, coming back to this, these subjective space, I can images, my thoughts is there, my ideas, my auditory imagery is what I said about the RMN music, and my actions, they are all under my control. And even my laughter, my mood is under my control. So these are all under my control. But however, in schizophrenia, this is lost completely. That basically the brain, the whole thought, that ego boundary is lost. So the patient feels that somebody is putting thoughts into his mind. And it's not just somebody is putting, he feels there is a thought comes to his mind. He feels this is not my thought. There is a satellite has put the thought into my mind. Or else he says, Mr. X is carrying a mobile phone. From there, I got a thought. And this is not my thought. And he clearly says, it doesn't belong to me. At the same time, patient also feels sometimes thought broadcasting. He feels suddenly his thought has gone outside. And it's an experience. He feels, yes, my thoughts is known to everyone. As soon as he thinks, everybody is coming to know. And specifically in schizophrenia patient, if they have thought broadcast, you ask him, what are you feeling? What is happening? You say, you know my thoughts. You're able to know. Why are you not acknowledging it? He clearly says that. In classical textbook, they say, thinking in unison. That means patient thinks that everybody is thinking along with him and they are coming to know about his thoughts. So thoughts are moved away from his brain, from his subjective space into objective space. He may give various reasons. The external agency may be satellite, maybe a printer, maybe a computer, maybe certain instrument. Those are the things he can give. Sometimes thought diffusion. He feels his thoughts are moving out and everybody is coming to know. And it should be an experiential account, not misinterpreting something. At the same time, he also feels his thoughts, his actions, his mood is controlled by somebody. And he says, see, my hands are moving. It is not I am moving. Somebody else is moving. That means he has lost complete control over his movements also. That is called as thought-made phenomena, made act, made volition, or made affect. So these are the important phenomena which we see in schizophrenia. Coming to the quality, please do understand about the thought elation phenomena. It's an experience. It is not an interpretation of something. Okay, so it's an experience at the same time. One, it should be against his will, and there should be an external agency, and the patient is a passive recipient, and he cannot control it. And he says that I can't do anything. My thoughts are known to everybody, and I am a passive recipient of the whole phenomena. That is the quality of this thought elation phenomena. And imagine if you have this phenomena, it's very threatening. Your own thoughts are not your thoughts. Forget about anything else. Forget about your property. Your thoughts, your actions are not your actions. Somebody else is controlling. That means you have become a controlled robot under somebody else. That's what the schizophrenia patient feels. It's a very disturbing phenomena in schizophrenia. Moving to the important point, that is the content. After finishing form, stream, possession, we are now going to the content. The content, the disorders of contents are delusions, overvalid ideas, depressive cognitions, preoccupations, and suicidal ideas and death wishes. Now let's understand delusion. Delusion is nothing but a false fixed belief which is beyond the patient's social cultural background and with a morbid origin. And these are all delusions. It's a false fixed. Whatever contrary evidence you are going to try to tell, patient will not believe it. He feels this phenomena, whatever he is feeling, is the truth. There are two different types of delusion: primary delusion and secondary delusion. Primary delusion is also called as apopheny. Why it is called as primary delusion? It is a de novo. That means it occurs out of the blue like this. A normal, healthy individual going on a road, suddenly he feels that there is a car moving in front of him. He feels his house has been targeted by some military agents and it has been destroyed. This sudden delusion, what he gets by looking at the car moving in front of him out of de novo, is a primary delusion. It is not beyond any morbid origin. It is out of the blue. De novo, that is the reason. That is called as primary delusion. The primary delusions can be classified into two: delusional mood and delusional memories. Delusion memory is also called as delusion of atmosphere. Let's understand delusional mood. In delusional mood, the patient feels there is something is going around his environment, and he he knows there is something is going wrong. He's concerned about it, but he's unable to pinpoint what is happening in his environment. So that is called as delusional mood. This is, you can see in an acute psychotic episode or the early part of schizophrenia, patient will be very perplexed. He doesn't know something is going on. You ask him, sir, there is something is going wrong in my environment, in my family, in my neighborhood, but I don't know what is it. So that is called as delusional mode. Sometimes it is also called as delusional atmosphere. So the classic definition of delusional mode is the patient knows something is going wrong around in his environment and he is very concerned about it, but he is unable to pinpoint what is going wrong there. So that is delusional mood. Over a period of time, that gets concreted into delusional persecution and delusion of reference. That is about delusional mood, and it should occur de novo, out of the blue. That is called as delusional mood. It is the early first sign. That is called as schizophrenia. This is commonly seen in schizophrenia. Next comes is delusional memories. Here, the whole memory is a part of a delusion. So there are two important things. One is sudden delusional idea and delusional perception. What is a sudden delusional idea? The example, it is also called as autochthonous. So in autochthonous, it's very clearly the patient gets a fully formed delusion in his mind all of a sudden. The example I gave you, the red car comes in front of him, the patient, a normal person walking on the road, he is normal completely. All of a sudden, there is a red car comes in front of him, and he feels his house has been targeted by the military people or some terrorist. So that's fully formed sudden delusion. It's called a sudden delusional idea. So that is about sudden delusional idea. It is a characteristic of schizophrenia. Now, delusional perception. This delusional perception is a two-memberedness. Here, there are two important things which occurs. Here, the patient has a thought process, which is a normal psychological phenomena, which is misinterpreted into another phenomena. For example, the patient remembers when he was young, he was using a silver spoon with the crown on it. The crown kind of figure on the spoon. Because there was a crown kind of the figure on the spoon, he feels that he is a royal family descent. There are two-memberedness is there. That is called as delusional perception. Again, in the delusional perception, it is a characteristic of schizophrenia and it should occur de novo. That is very, very essential. De novo means out of the blue, and he is a normal person, but suddenly he gets it first time he's having the symptom. They're all called as primary delusion. But if you see a patient who is already 1 year old or 2 year old, it's very difficult to find when was the first symptom arised. And it will be very difficult to know which is the primary delusion. If the recent onset, which may be within 1 week or 1 month or 2 months, still we can find primary delusion. But however, the importance of primary delusion is slowly being lost, because once the patient reaches the doctor, it would have been 2 years or 3 years. So it is difficult to find the primary delusion. Invariably, it will be secondary delusions. Secondary delusion means the delusions occurring behind the morbid phenomena. That means he's already had a diagnosis of schizophrenia. He's having new delusions every day or every month or every year. They're all called a secondary delusion. Primary delusion is de novo, out of the blue, in a normal person it occurs and he becomes schizophrenia. Secondary delusion is already they have illness, and on that behind he is getting these symptoms. So how to explain the delusion? First and the foremost, you have to take a speech sample. I have given the example how to go about asking open-ended questions. Then you have to describe the detailed description of the phenomena. Tell them they are single delusions or multiple delusion, since how long he is having this, whether they are bizarre delusion, non-bizarre delusion. Basically, bizarreness is against the nature, implausible. That means if the patient says, because of my will, I can control the sun will set in the east, and I can do it, and I can control the sun completely under my capability, and I can order him to do the way I want. The whole sun plant is under his control. That is, which is not possible. They are all called as bizarre delusions. And whether it is bizarre or non-bizarre, whether these delusions are fleeting or continuous. Continuously it is there 24/7, or else it comes half an hour and goes. Whether it is systematized or poorly systematized, or else it is called as ill systematized. Systematic means how the logical explanation is given from one event to another event, or one delusion to another delusion. If you grant one delusion, the rest of the delusion can be well clearly explained on logical basis. That is systematization. Mood congruent, whether his delusion is congruent with the mood. Imagine if a person has delusion of poverty, that means he feels that he has become very poor, and that is a delusion, and he is crying. That means it is mood congruent. Or else, if the patient says, the people are trying to kill me, delusion of persecution is there, but he is laughing. So it is a mood incongruent. Because if somebody is trying to kill you, you have to become afraid, fearful. That is not seen. Acting out, whether because of the delusion he is acting out or not. And the type of delusion, is it a grandiose delusion, referential delusion, persecutory delusion, realistic delusion? These are the important criteria on which you are going to explain when you do the MSc. So whereas different types of delusion seen in schizophrenia, delusion of persecution, that means the patient will say somebody is trying to kill me. Delusion of reference, people are seeing me, people are observing me, wherever I go people follow me, or they are looking at me. That means I am the point of reference. That is delusion of reference. Delusion of infidelity of spouse. It is also called as morbid jealousy. The patient feels that his spouse has an extramarital affair. So that is delusion of infidelity of spouse. Delusion of misinterpretation. In this situation, the patient will misinterpret any normal psychological event into a pathological event. For example, if a person takes the phone from his pocket, the patient feels that he is going to call the persecutor. The simple phenomena, some stranger taking the phone out of his pocket, he feels somebody is doing something. Or else, in a depressed patient, whenever the person is sweeping the floor, he feels they are doing deliberately to tell him that he is useless. So they are all called as delusion of misinterpretation. Delusion of love. In the delusion of love, it is also called as erotomania, where a person with mental illness feels a person from a higher status in love with him. A movie actor or actresses is in love with him, and he knows and he completely believes in that. And very often you find this people in newspaper telling that a film actor or actresses are in love with them since long duration, and they believe in this concept, and they go into media, and media without their knowledge will put these persons with mental illness in the media. Bizarre delusion, which I told you, which are completely so bizarre, implausible, against the nature. Delusion of retrospective falsification. This is a very interesting delusion where a person may say a person with mental illness or a person with schizophrenia who is having illness since past 1 month. Since past 1 month, he has a schizophrenia symptoms as per ICD-10 criteria. But he says from past 6 years, he feels his mother is putting poison into his food. Delusion of persecution. He says since 5 years. So there is a retrospective falsification. His onset of illness is past 1 month as per ICD-10 criteria. But here, his delusions goes back to 5 years, where he was completely normal. He never felt that his mother is poisoning his food. This retrospective falsification of time sense is delusion of retrospective falsification. Next comes is foliodix, basically share delusion. Here, a person, imagine a husband and wife. The wife is completely dependent on the husband as a dependent personality, and the husband has delusion of persecution. He feels Mr. X or some politician is trying to kill him. Delusion of persecution, he is there. And he continuously expresses to his wife, and even the wife starts believing it. That becomes a shared delusion. When you separate them over a period of time, within 4 or 5 days, the wife does not get this delusion. That means without treatment, she will become normal. Whereas the primary delusion, the person who has a primary illness, will continue to have delusion. That is called a shared delusion. The other important phenomena of delusion in schizophrenia, which is commonly asked in exam, is delusion of procreation. This was one of the concept coined by my colleague, that is Dr. N. Manjunath, which he clearly said that delusion of procreation is a complete phenomena in a woman where she feels that she is fallen in love, she's married some imaginary person, married somebody, and she has become pregnant. She has given birth to a child also. The whole procreation occurs here, and she's completely unmarried, and the family says she's never been married, but she completely feels that there is a husband, she had a life with him, and all those things. That is delusion of procreation. A complete false marriage, pregnancy, childbirth, the complete phenomena is there, delusion of procreation. And next comes is Capgras syndrome, or also called as delusion of doubles. It is called as hypo-identification syndrome. In this phenomena, the patient feels that his close family members has been replaced by identical imposter. The husband has this delusion, the husband who is suffering from schizophrenia, if he develops this Capgras syndrome or a delusion of doubles, he feels his wife has been replaced by an imposter. That means he sees his wife is there with him, but he says, she is not my wife. A imposter has come in his wife's body or in her way. He knows because of certain of her physical and her psychological characteristics. That's what the explanation he gives. That is Capgras syndrome. It is hypo-identification syndrome. The reverse one is, it is also called as Fregoli syndrome. Here, hyper-identification syndrome. Here, the patient feels the close family members are identified in strangers. Suddenly, a person, the same person with schizophrenia, a husband, whenever he goes outside, he sees a woman going there, he feels that his wife has come in that stranger form. It is hyper-identification. He will identify his wife in every stranger. That is Fregoli syndrome. Next comes is intermetamorphosis. Here, the patient can see someone else change his appearance and personality completely, both physically and psychologically. He can see them. He can see a person who is very handsome becoming like a devil. And he sees their hairs changing in front of him. It's a complete, the patient will give a complete picture of visual hallucination and also a kind of delusion, and he sees that I can see the way the behavior changes. So this is delusion of intermetamorphosis. Here the external appearance and internal personality completely changes. So again, if you sit with a chronic schizophrenia patient who had a lot of psychopathology, these kind of symptoms are commonly seen. Coming to delusions in mood disorder, delusion of grandiosity. Here the patient feels that he has a role, he has become a god, and he has a role to play here, and he is the savior of the world. Delusion of grandiosity of role. Ability, he can stop earthquake. That is delusion of grandiosity of ability. Identity, he is the prime minister of a country. So that delusion of identity, ability, role, it may be all of them are there, or it may be single also. That is delusion of grandiosity seen in mania or bipolar affective disorder. Delusion of love can also be seen here. Delusion of guilt. Here the person feels that he has done something wrong and he has to be punished for it, and he will rotten in the hell. So the delusion of guilt will be so severe, the person will attempt suicide. Delusion of poverty. The person feels that he has lost all his money and he has become so poor that he has to beg. And many people who develop this delusion of poverty starts begging outside the house, and they'll say, I have lost money, and they will give a complete explanation that there, but in fact it is not true. Nihilistic delusion. Here the person with having this nihilistic delusion feels that his body parts have been rotting or missing, or completely they are not there. He also say that the people are dead and the whole world is dead. Everybody is dead. So that is nihilistic delusion, or also called as delusion of negation. The next important is delusion of enormity. Here the person stops taking fluid. Why? He says that if I take fluid, I may pass urine. And if I pass urine, the whole world will become flooded, and I'll be the responsible person for creating flooding across the world. So this is delusion of enormity. Delusion of hypochondriasis. Here the person feels that he has been having a cancer and nobody is able to detect it. Or else he may say that I have HIV and all tests may be negative, but still he feels that there may be a new variant of new strain and nobody is able to detect it. And that delusion is called as hypochondriacal delusion, also called as somatic delusion. Delusion of parasitosis. Here the patient feels that patient believes that he has parasites and he is able to remove that, and he will show here is the here, and you can't see it's very minute. So he will be continuously removing from his head. So that is delusion of parasitosis. Dysmorphic delusion, here the patient feels that his nose is ugly, his face is ugly, his lips are ugly, sometimes his breast, she may feel that his breasts are small or big and they want to go for operation. And many times it may involve even genitalia also. So that is called as dysmorphic delusion. Delusion of halitosis, here the patient feels that he is emitting bad odor from his mouth, from his body, and they will start actively avoiding social gathering. And because they feel that people may get bad smell from him. These are all in delusional, we can see in mood disorder. But however, there are certain other disorders which have been seen in content, that is overvalued ideas. Here they are not delusions, but one delusion, one thought or one idea takes precedence over other ideas because of the associated feeling. That thought becomes completely predominant. For example, a person may feel this Bangalore is the best city in the world. In spite of many people saying it's not, there are many things that are good, but there are equal number of bad things happening in Bangalore. But because of the associated feeling of thought process, he believes no, Bangalore is the only. It's not a delusion, but it's an overvalid idea. That is because of associated feeling of tone. One thought takes precedence over all other thoughts and it continues to remain. That is overvalued ideas. Depressive cognitions like hopelessness. There is no hope in the future. Worthlessness, I am not good for nothing. Helplessness, nobody can help me. So these are depressive cognition. If it is there, you have to document that. Suicidal ideas, death wishes, if it is there. When was the last time he got that? How often he is getting that? Whether he has any plans to kill himself? Has he attempted recently? Would he like to take help? So these are the things you have to ask. Preoccupations with regard to somatic complaints, hypocortical preoccupations and body image preoccupations. If it is not at the level of delusion, you are going to mention this. These are all comes under the content. So after finishing all these 4 important things of thought disorders: form, stream, possession, and content, which are very important questions which are asked in the exams, and you should know to classify these and also to know this to pass the exam and also to learn the psychopathology. These are the important things. To conclude, my dear friends, mental status examination has 7 important components. Thought process is very important, and we have discussed about form, stream, possession, and the content. There are various disorders. Please do learn about this. The only way to learn is sitting with the patient, interviewing them, building rapport, empathizing with all these phenomena, what they are going through. You'll be able to learn them. And if you like this video, please do subscribe to the channel. Thank you for giving your valuable time. Stay safe.